We're sitting here with the lovely Kendra Morris. How are you today?
Hi, good. How are you?
All right. First question we wanted to ask you, tell us about your experience with music as a child.
Both my parents are musicians. My mom is a singer. My dad sings as well and plays guitar. My mom's been a pianist as well, and they just grew up in bands, playing around in prisons sometimes. Always in, they would take me to bluegrass festivals growing up. I was just always around music. They would have their friends over late into the night and have jam sessions. So I was always just around people and music. And one of my earliest memories was on Saturday mornings, my parents would clean the house and they would turn up the stereo as loud as possible.
Okay.
And it would always be the Spinners or War or Tower of Power or something that they were listening to at the time, and that's what I would wake up to. It would get me up, so it kind of just found its way into my ears, and so that was just the beginning of it for me. I was like, I want to do that. I want to be involved in that. I always loved being on a stage, or I loved being by myself in my room. I had a karaoke machine, and I got it for Christmas, and I would take cassette tapes, and I would record myself singing on one side, and I'd flip it over and put it to the other side of the karaoke machine and play back my vocals and re-record. And that's how I learned how to track vocals, sort of.
That's dope.
And I got really into building harmonies, and that was kind of something that really I got into too. So I was always either in my room recording, or I was making up bands with my friends, playing outside in the backyard with this band. And it's my earliest memory. That's what I always was doing. Always wanted to do.
Okay, that's dope. At what point in time did you realize that music was your career?
A career, as in just my.
Yeah. When did you notice? When did you realize that you really wanted? That you knew that this is your calling?
This was what I wanted.
Yeah.
I think it's always something that I wanted, but I remember after high school, I went to an arts high school and I studied musical theater, but I was never, the theater part never really, attracted me. I was never good at, memorizing things, or I just always loved, the singing and, the emoting of things. And after high school, everybody was like, you have to go to college, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do in college. So,
nobody ever does.
I was like, I don't know if that's really something I want, and so I went to college, but I got there and I just I didn't even pick a major. I was just I remember sitting down with the guidance counselor there. They're like, well, what's your major? And I'm like, undecided. So the whole time I was in college, I was just flunking out of classes, trying to fit square peg into a round hole, and it just wasn't happening. But I remember I met these guys through a boyfriend of mine they were in a band. And I remember I just inched my way into being I sing, and I remember I started singing with them, and it was I would sometimes do the little vocal hooks and stuff, and that was that was just when I got a taste of writing and really writing and writing for just for projects. And when I got a taste of being on a stage with a band performing in the spotlight, I was like, this is what I want. And shortly after that, once that really clicked, I dropped out, pretty much immediately after that, and I moved back home. And I just remember, I've kept journals since I was 13, and I just remember writing, don't know how I'm going to do it, I'm going to make it happen. And I remember I moved back home, and I just knew you have to start from somewhere to get somewhere. So from there on out, it was just putting things together and building blocks of just slowly, I knew what I was reaching for, but it takes so many elements, and fall down, you get knocked down, you get kicked in the ass, and you just have to keep doing it no matter what.
Okay. You mentioned songwriting. You're a very talented songwriter.
Yeah.
What is the process for you when it comes to writing a song?
It changes a lot. I switch it up a lot because I feel if you don't force yourself into certain ways of doing things, I'm always just trying different ways, but mostly the way I'm doing now. I started out when I was writing, I sometimes write with just like art. I just have like my acoustic or electric guitar in front of me, and I'll start with just like hearing a couple chords, and then also like sometimes on the piano I'll hear some chords and put it together. But lately, what I really like, I love co-writing with people. I think sometimes that brings the best out in two people because
it's like a competition.
Everybody's coming
almost
from different places, and so I'll co-write with like a producer a lot of times, or like this guy Jeremy Page that I did my upcoming album with. What we do is we would just sit there and we would start with an idea of like, he would say, this is something I've been kind of working on, take a listen to this, and I would kind of hear a melody, or there would be something, I'd be like, oh, there's something there, so then I'd run into the studio and like hum the melody, and then go back out, and then he'd kind of play that melody for me, and I'd hear that melody, and then build on that, and then I take my notebook, and what I do is I carry notebooks everywhere with me. I have to carry a notebook, whether it's this big or this big, and I have freehand write, and I just like kind of take the pen to the paper and just like let whatever words come out. I don't know where it's going to go, and I start with that, and then I start to see like the formation of an idea with the melody, and then I start, after the melody is formed and I see the lyrics, it's kind of like putting together like a collage or a puzzle, and you're like, how does this work? And I think also if you're not so sure on like it has to be about this, and it could be about something that you never expected and that ended up working out. Then there's times where like I know exactly what I want to write about, and that can be, sometimes that's the hardest, because when you know exactly what you want to get across and you really want to use the strongest way to describe that other people can relate to be the words you use, because for me I never want to be cheap on the way I describe a feeling, I guess. So that's kind of how I write, but who knows, maybe next week or next month or next year I'll be writing a completely different way. So.
Okay, all right, that's cool. We hear that with the help of an 8-track, you recorded your music out of the closet. Did that in your small apartment in the city? Did that allow you to grow closer to your art form?
Definitely. There was a time about probably like 4 years ago. I was living in a loft with a girlfriend in Bushwick, and it was crazy because the loft had no walls, and everything was separated by like levels in the loft, and like she was on the top left half, and she would paint up there. She's an amazing painter. And she'd stay up all night painting. And so sometimes when you live with other creative people, like you want to it helps. Like that's why I love New York, is because you're always help rubbing off on each other. And so I would be in my side of the loft, which it was weird because I had a closet, and then there was a ladder in my closet, and all my clothes were in the closet, and this 8-track and all my music stuff. It's probably about, I don't know, a cube. But you climb up the ladder, and then my bed and my books were up there. So it was like I've always wound up sleeping in tree houses and recording in closets, always. And so I would go in there, and I had this 8-track. It was a Tascam. I still have it. And I would just sit in there by myself while she was painting, and just start writing. I would start with a guitar or a keyboard melody. And then I would start with just one guitar, and I'd hear a vocal melody. I'd record that on the 8-track, and then I would just the same way I did with my karaoke machine when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
Where I was in my early 20s, doing the same thing with the 8-track and just layering vocals and hearing melodies in that. And then using almost I've always used my voice as an instrument. I use it for a lot of things, but I try to use it as an instrument, because you can hear a lot of different. You can just hear when you can do different things with your voice, you can get across different tones, different modes. I just kind of would do that with the 8-track, and that's how I would write with that. And so I would put these songs up on MySpace and just be just want to share them. I knew they were really scratchy and there was a lot of mistakes, but I find beauty in mistakes. I'm always
give it a real feel.
Yeah, I'm always a bigger fan of a vocalist that has mistakes in their voice and their notes, rather than a vocalist that's auto-tuned and perfect. I love
ultimately it's the flaws that make it
love
beautiful.
the flaws. So I've always just been a person that I just put stuff out, because if you feel good about it, it's going to get heard regardless, you know?
Yeah.
And if it's what you love doing, you're going to do it no matter what.
Do you still have that trusty 8-track?
I do. I do. I still take it out sometimes, and I have it in my closet again. When I take it out, I set up in my new apartment. My bed is lofted like a treehouse again, and under the bed there's a whole little area that's where I do all my music. So it's like back in the closet.
Concrete Waves. That was a great song, by the way.
Thank you.
And the video is possibly even greater, dare I say. How fun was it shooting the video for Concrete Wave, and how did the concept come about?
That video, well, the concept came about from the director. He heard the song. He's best friends with one of the label heads over at Wax Poetics, and he heard the song one day, and all of a sudden was like, I have this idea. And he came back with a treatment that was like this big. It was like a movie script of like how he wanted to do the video.
Wow.
And I remember getting it and looking at it, I'm like, it's awesome if you could do it. I was like, we were all kind of laughing. We're like, that's a cool idea. That would be nice, but that sounds like it's like $1 million budget. Like,
yeah, it did. It did. Yeah, it did.
You know? And he's like, I can do it. Give me a shot. So I was like, of course. And I'm always like, the thing that I love about videos and working with different directors, you know, I love giving them the opportunity to use someone. Like, the cool thing about when you're doing a video with someone is you're like kind of collaborating with another artist, and it's not, I think it's always better when you let that other artist like basically translate what your music is for that crazy story. And so we did it, like we filmed it. We all like pulled in like different people to help out. Like I have like all my best friends work with me on my side of things, like with like hair and makeup and like wardrobe. Those are my 3 best friends. And I was always like, we always would joke around, like, if, like, I was ever to, like, because I'm like, when I make it, I'm bringing you guys with me, you know, and that's always, like, it makes everything more fun when you're working with your friends.
Yeah, it is,
so
yeah.
I brought them on
in
board.
The family.
I brought them on board, you know, because they're amazing, talented people, and, like, great, like, spirits and personalities, and, like, if you're having fun at something, it makes it that much better to do it, and it's going to be that much better because there was all this energy behind the project. So we filmed it for a month, all around New York City.
Wow.
Because a lot of it was weather dependent, and it was like, shots that you could only get, like, we would have to do, like, I'd have to sing the same, like, line of the song over and over. Like, usually when you do a music video, you're singing the song over and over. But with the way he did it, where it was all these like frames and like
different,
it was always like we would have to do that same line over and over and over again, and it would be in a different place. And sometimes he needed the rain for something, so they waited until it rained one night, or it needed to be a sunny day. And it was crazy because last year in September, October, the weather was bizarre. It was like 80 degrees one day and like 50 degrees another day. And so it was grueling, but it was awesome because
that
every day...
sounds like some schizophrenic weather.
Yeah, it was insane, but every day it was like being on call for a job, and we were always like, I want to film, I want to do this, and we'd like wake up and wait for the call, and he'd be like, alright, we're all meeting in Central Park at 2 in the afternoon, ready to go. It's this scene, and so we had all our like outfits like picked out and had it all set up, so it was great.
What scene did you enjoy shooting the most? Do you remember?
Jeez.
I'd have to say the one where you basically throw him to the bottom.
That was all night. That took all night to do that. I think that was like one of the first scenes we did.
Oh, okay.
I loved just being out in New Jersey in that Sweetie Motel, and there was like all these like there's like hookers in the same motel just down the hallway. I remember some guy opened the door to his like motel room, and he had obviously been living there.
Yeah.
And there was like a velour leopard bed
Oh my
and
God.
mirrors around it.
Wow.
And I just remember peeking in there being like, wow.
That's pimp.
Yeah, and then my friend Sasha, who does my makeup, she's like walking, and she was like keeping an eye on something while we're filming, and he peeks his head out, and he starts waving to her and like beckoning her to come in.
Wow.
And she went, she's like, some guy's waving at me. So that was So it was all so much fun. The tugboat was really fun too. I got to drive the tugboat.
Oh my god.
The tugboat driver, little toot. He's like, do you want to drive it? So they were like following us in another boat.
Yeah.
It took 2 boats to get out into the middle of Sheepshead Bay, and I'm like driving, and I'm like kind of hoping that they like drive around and see me driving and freak out. So I'm like, hey.
You're an experienced tugboat captain?
Now I am. I could say I've driven a tugboat. I can't drive a car, but I can drive a tugboat.
Not a lot of people can say that.
Yep. It's good.
You seem to have a very heavy soul leaning. Are there any particular artists that greatly influenced your style, or was it the whole genre in general?
I'm always discovering new artists.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always going on. I found these guys, Jazzman Records, and I'm always going on their blog. They have these amazing like soul podcasts, and I always find out about some amazing new artists. But I'm constantly looking up new artists and trying to. There's so much, but I mean, it started I started out with some of the more well-known soul greats like Marvin Gaye and Donny Hathaway, and like even stuff my parents were listening to, Jackson 5, a lot of early. My parents used to go to Jamaica when I was little. Okay. And they would come back with these records, and I remember like getting into their records when I moved out, and I stole them all. And then I lost them. But they had like Half Pint and like old Bob Marley stuff. I'm trying to think of some of these like old reggae records that they even had, and I'm a big fan of reggae because that is a whole other form of soul music, I believe. Okay. It's the rhythms are a little bit different, but it all comes from the same place. So I started out with just like War, Tower of Power, The Spinners, Marvin Gaye, Aretha Franklin, and then moved on to finding like all these girl groups, all the Phil Spector groups, the Ronettes, and of that got into like this girl Little Ann, who she put out an album like a couple songs like years ago, and it was looked over, and like recently someone found her records and started playing them, and she has like the most heartbreaking voice I've ever heard. Like you should check her out, Little Ann. The song is Deep Shadows. Okay. And so like I'll sometimes find. So then through that I started looking up who produced her, who found her, and it was this guy Dave Hamilton, who was a producer out of Detroit in the 60s. Wow. And so then I'll go and I'll look up whoever like he worked with, and then find all these other. And so it's like playing with Legos sort of, and you just keep discovering. So I have a lot of like my influence comes from soul music. I love soul music. It's the one thing I never get sick of it. It's all I will get ready in my house and which I listen to soul music, but I am influenced by other stuff too. I've always kind of been into a lot of classic rock. I'm always like at the end of the day I'm drawn to a song. Okay. I think a song can span anything. Like if it's a good song, you can play it with only guitar. You can play it with just voices and a couple of bongos. A good song remains a good song, and that's going to translate through any style of music. And if it's a good song, it doesn't matter. Like it really doesn't matter what style of music people are into. Like if it's a good song, you can translate it through all that. And it's the one thing that I think it sounds cheesy, but I think it unites ears.
People are very quick to put a label on things. You're right about that.
Totally.
So what is your favorite song then? Can you give us your favorite song?
Jeez, favorite song?
Yeah, honestly, if you had to pick one.
And the whole world?
Yes.
That's like the hardest question ever.
If you had all of your favorite songs hanging off of a cliff and you had to save one, which one would you say?
Jeez. I wasn't prepared for that question. I don't know. I really don't know. I'll think of it after I leave here. I'll be like, that's my favorite song. And that is too. Honestly, I don't know. It changes with my mood. Okay.
Right. What exactly are you looking to bring to today's musical landscape, the landscape of music?
I can only speak for myself. I hope to bring honesty with what I do. I can't sit and judge someone else's music. Everybody deserves. Anybody who goes and wants to put out music, everybody has a right to. If you want to express yourself, you have a right to do that. And there's a lot of people that are unable to express themselves that way, so they look to hear it through other people. So for myself, I just always want to be honest with what I do. Okay. I truly believe if you're honest with what you do and it comes from the heart, then you can't go wrong. and you know, I hope to just keep building and growing and like getting better at what I do. Like, the day that I'm not getting any better is the day I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna go hang out on the beach for a while. But I love learning. I like trying new things. I like doing completely different stuff. Like I have a project coming up which is completely opposite of, and I can't even like speak about it right now, but something totally different that I just wanted to learn and experience, and it was with friends. And
okay, we can't wait to see that then.
That's gonna be different. It's so much fun. It's pretty awesome.
That actually brings us to our next question. What are you up to these days? What's next for Kendra Morris?
Well, I just was in LA. I recorded for this side project that I think will be coming out soon. Just a couple of singles.
Okay.
With some really good friends, and that was just me growing in a whole nother way as an artist. It forced me to pick up the guitar again and really like get better at that.
Okay.
So you hear me playing guitar a lot more. And I'm actually also just talking to some other just people. You'll see me having my hand in a lot of different things, because for me, the way I've always been my whole life is I like growing. I like continuing to do things. I like questioning things and getting better. And you know, I have come upon like bumps in the road on the way. I think I always will, and I think, you know, when you go through tough stuff, it only makes you stronger.
Yeah.
You know, and
it's definitely true.
Sometimes it stinks to admit. One thing I've learned about life, and I'm still learning a lot about life, and I don't know a lot, but one thing I've learned is that, like, to enjoy the bad days and the good days, because they're on the same thing. There's not one's better than the other, because the bad stuff is what's going to make you a better person and make you a stronger person. And then it makes you appreciate the good days because you've been through the bad days, and it makes you so you can really relate with other people and
helps you to appreciate the good days.
Yeah, we're all a bunch of creepy humans.